Preparing. Looks like we are live. Let me just verify and check here. Um, let's see. Yes, we're live right now. And happy Sunday Live, Gordana.
Looks like we're live. Happy Sunday Live, Lucas, and happy Sunday Live, everyone watching. This is going to be an amazing Sunday Live, I think, because we're going to dive deep into something that I think we all experience, but we can't make sense of it in a way. I mean, have you ever had an experience where you talk to someone and you have an argument and you feel like they're in a completely different universe than you? You look at one and the same thing, and at the same time, you experience two different things and you can't get close because it's so different from each other.
Yes.
And I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I know that you have too, Lucas. So we just want to have a conversation around that. How can we perceive reality so different when we're looking at one and the same thing? So let's unpack this.
Yes, absolutely. It comes up for me on a daily basis for numerous reasons. Like in my professional job, during the week, I'm the head of global brand for this global company. And in North America, because I sit in the United States, I talked to my Canadian colleagues, and even just in that reality, I had this wonderful conversation with a colleague of mine up in Canada last week, and they're freaking out about the tariffs and Trump and all this stuff, and he explained a real logical view of what's going to happen. Canadians are starting to boycott the U.S. and this that. But I said, it's so fascinating. No one in the US has that. And we don't know that his view, he thought we understood the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no concept of this in the US right now. None. That alone shocked me in that he was projecting that I would understand what they're going through. And I had no clue that there was any shift in the reality that we once had, and it was all based on beliefs. And we unpacked it, and I was like, that's so fascinating, because I said I'm a political junkie. I love politics. I watch politics as my sport. And I said, but it's so fascinating, all our perception of the reality and our beliefs that we hold come from the media. Because I said, how is it that you think that the world's falling apart and I have no clue of that? And it's the information that we're given that shapes our view. And he was like, that's really interesting.
Yes, and you're absolutely true, because nothing is as it is.
Right.
Everything is as we perceive it to be.
Yes.
And in perceiving is the whole world there.
Yes.
That
Yes.
is how you perceive, that is where your world will be. Where you focus, that is what your world will be.
Right.
The interesting part is that, where do these belief systems come from? And for me, it's never been more apparent that it is belief systems that create the physical world out there.
Yes. Yes.
Because if we are looking at one and the same thing, and we are perceiving one and the same thing in two different ways, that must mean that the one thing is not an objective thing. It is something that reacts to my consciousness and reacts to your consciousness. And it mirrors back your consciousness to you and my consciousness to me. So it's like a mirror. It's not like a thing that has its own form or meaning. I fill it with form and meaning, and so do you. And what I fill it with has to do with my experiences, my beliefs, my memories, my personality, my worldview. And when you look at it that way, I'm actually astounded that we can see one and the same thing, because it's so many things in our past that can put filters in front of us so that we don't see the same thing.
Yes.
It is amazing that we can see the same thing, actually, because we literally live in our own bubbles. And then we agree upon certain things. This is how it is. And I say, yes, I agree with you on that one. The problem starts when we don't agree. when we do not agree of what we are looking at,
Yeah.
and we think it's the one and the same thing, and it's not.
Right. Right.
Because it changes reality. And here's the problem. Reality out there is fluid. The observer here is constant. How we are conditioned to see reality is that reality out there is solid, not fluid.
Yeah.
And the observer in here is fluid, doesn't know where it comes from. That's not the truth.
Right. Right.
It's the other way around. So we're not doing anything wrong by not seeing the same thing. Where we are in time and space right now, we are actually shown that my consciousness and your consciousness is the same consciousness, only looking through different perspectives.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to embrace when we meet someone who has a totally different perspective of something. We should actually embrace this and look at it and become curious without the judging. Just look at them and see, where does that perspective, what perspective is this?
Yeah.
What perspective is the one, all that is, looking through that person? That person is actually a portal into consciousness.
Yes. Yes.
And you know what? I actually wanted to read a short passage from my book, Know the Truth, where I talk about this. And I'll read it. It's short. It won't take a long time. And we can use this as some kind of base for what we're talking about in this Sunday Live today.
Beautiful.
So I'll read it.
Beautiful.
The chapter is called Oneness, and it goes like this. All is one. One is all that is. I am one. As a child, I couldn't get my mind around the concept that I am one with everyone else. How could that be possible? Clearly, I was separated from the others, or I was separate from the others. I was not the same as my mother or my father. I was not the same as my brothers. I was not the same as the children in the schoolyard. I was not the same as anyone on the bus, in our neighborhood, on the planet, in the universe. I was me, just me and no one else. How could I possibly be one with everything else when obviously I was the one experiencing everything else? How could I be one with someone while at the same time experience them as outside of me or other than me? If I am one with everything, where do I end and where do you begin? If I'm one with everything, then what's outside of me? I would torment my school teacher with these questions, hoping that he, as a grown-up, would have figured it out. It took me years of mind-bending to truly grasp the concept of oneness without losing myself in its synchronistically paradoxical nature. To come closer to some kind of understanding of the concept of being one with everything, I figured I had to start asking the right questions. How would you know who you are or what you are if you're the only one in existence? There would be nothing with which to compare yourself. There would be nothing to interact with, to experience, to be passionate about, to love, or to explore. While this scenario would probably be interesting for a while, you would eventually get bored and want something to do or to explore. You would want to interact with something that is not you, something that could surprise you, something that could give you a specific experience. Let's play with the abstract thought that there is nothing outside of you and that you are the one being all that is. How would you solve the problem of boredom? Since there's nothing outside of you, you are all that is, there is no option other than to divide yourself into smaller parts of yourself, erase the knowledge of your true self in those smaller parts, and just for the creative fun of it, give these parts roles to play. You would then set up a scenario in which the smaller parts would interact with each other and report back to you on their sorrows and joys, fears and loves, worries and happy experiences. every time a part got tired of the role it played, you would give it a different, more interesting scenario to act out. Since you know, trust, and love every part of yourself, you would allow everything to be explored. Nothing would be excluded. Every experience would be unconditionally accepted in eternity for the joy of being. You are the one being. You're the one perceiving. You are the one experiencing. You are the one. Without you, there is no one.
Mm.
And one more thing, if the universe is infinite, stretching out in all directions, isn't it safe to assume that no matter where you are always at the center of it? And so am I, and so is everything else. Oneness, it's a funny paradox, isn't it?
Mm.
So, what I'm trying to say in this chapter is that we are one consciousness experiencing this world through different perspectives.
Yeah.
You are one perspective, I am one perspective, everyone else is one perspective. All of these perspectives are portals to consciousness, to one. When I can recognize the one in you, I know who I am too. And that can bring us closer. Now, you're experiencing a specific perspective, which the one, God, consciousness, whatever you want to call it, is curious about in this world. So, who am I to tell you that you are having the wrong experience here? I
Mm.
can't do that because you're fulfilling a purpose which the one sent you here to fulfill. So this is your perspective, and this is my perspective. I can only become richer if I explore your perspective. If
Mm.
I judge it, I lower my frequency and I close down my access to my own portal and consciousness.
Mm.
Does it make sense to you what I'm saying here?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a question of recognizing yourself in everyone else
Mm.
or your higher self.
It reminds me of a board game that the players feel separate until there's this
Mm-hmm.
communication in real life. If we start to unpack in curiosity why someone believes,
Mm-hmm.
I think at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, we all want the very core thing. We
Mm-hmm.
want to be feel safe. We want our needs met. We want love. We
Mm-hmm.
want to be known and seen.
Mm-hmm.
The filters to get to that truth
Mm-hmm.
take time
Mm-hmm.
to unlayer, unravel, and have enough self-awareness inside of ourselves to say, oh yeah,
Mm-hmm.
where did I pick up this belief? Where did I pick up
Mm-hmm.
this perception? Is it mine? And I have been, let's say, dogmatic in preaching it must be first person experience by you, by all of us to know it for certain. Because anything that's not
Mm-hmm.
first person read, first person experience, first person heard or seen, or yeah, heard or seen, we are now then taking someone else's transmission of a first person experience. And we don't know how far back that first person
Mm-hmm.
experience goes. It could be
Yes.
thousands of years, it could be thousands of people. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And until we can unpack as players on this board our own belief system and be curious about another, we will have a very difficult time understanding that we're one. And the
Mm-hmm.
player, although these two separate, when we connect and find out what we have in similarities, becomes
Mm-hmm.
bigger. Like the two become one bigger one, and you start to bring in a one bigger one, and the player, the oneness,
Mm-hmm.
becomes bigger when we can unpack and cut through all these different beliefs that we don't know for certain
Mm-hmm.
true because we haven't experienced it. And the movie Wag the Dog is such
Yes.
a great example of countries in that movie ended up going to war based off a movie scene set of a fake war to cover some other scandal. And well,
Mm-hmm.
is it true? Is it real?
Yes.
How do I know?
You know, when you speak the word, is it true? That's the more I know who I am, the more I understand that whatever I'm exploring in this reality is just one part or one side of the truth. It can never be the whole truth.
Right.
You know, when you read the Tao, it says let me think, what does it say exactly? It says, if it can be spoken, or if it is a word, then it is not the Tao.
Mm.
The truth cannot be spoken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Parts of the truth, coming close to the truth, yes, but the entire truth about this reality and who we are cannot be spoken. If you
Yes.
speak about it, you cannot encompass the whole truth about it. It's like talking about God. You can't describe God because and that would be the truth, so to
Right.
speak. So it's, you know, when you look at someone and you say, why can't they see the truth? Because you think that you possess the truth. Of course, the closer you are to knowing who you are, you will be closer to the truth. But also, the closer you are to knowing who you are, you will be more compassionate and you will be more patient and you will be less judging when you talk to people.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah, so that means that you won't even ask the question, why can't they see the truth? You
Mm.
might say, why do they believe this thing? And then with curiosity, you will go in there and look at it. What kind of belief system made this person think this way?
Yeah.
But you wouldn't judge them and you wouldn't say, I know the truth because I'm such an illuminated being. If you say this, you do not know the truth and you're not illuminated.
100%. Yes. Yes.
Absolutely.
It,
So there is
I
no
could,
encounter where you will have to become angry or judging.
right.
You can just see their belief system. That's all you see. I'm sorry, I cut you
Have you,
off.
no,
Go
no, no,
ahead.
it's totally fine. Have you heard of it was I don't know if it's still the number one podcast. But it became the number one podcast in the world called the telepathy tapes. Have you heard of this?
No, 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 I haven't. No.
So there are these non-verbal autistic people in the world that, and this has been scientifically proven, and the woman Kai, she was on Joe Rogan's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost out of body to listen to her. She said she believes that because science has been ruled by the materialistic
Yes.
power structure, that the materialistic power structure will be like the flat earth in 50 years. That
Yes.
there is science, they do have the science to prove the quantum and the spiritual, but
Yes.
because there's the guardians, they keep shutting these things down. So
Mm-hmm.
she said that things are changing. And what part of it is this empirical data that they have about these non-verbals, um,
Mm-hmm.
who some don't even have function of their body. So they have to like wear weighted pants or weighted boots because they don't know if they're in their body because their head is disassociated from their body. It's
Never heard of
fascinating.
this. This
Oh my
is
gosh.
fascinating. Yes.
And they are telepathic fully, and they can enter people's minds and they can have full conversations and all this proof, all this data of people all over the world.
Mhm.
And one gentleman, and so how they learned how to teach them how to speak is having um, uh, functional therapists, like someone that can help them speak in either punch holes in letters. And but because they can't move their body, they have to be helped and all this stuff. Anyway, one gentleman, and there's this 5-year-old nonverbal that knows perfect hieroglyphics, can speak perfect Russian and perfect Japanese, and he's an American 5-year-old. Perfect. And they don't know how they know all these things. So one of these guys finally went, and he was older. I think he was in his early 20s, older for, usually they find this out in the kids. They asked him, what did you learn through this whole process? Because they realized that these people are brilliant, but they're trapped in this other world. And so this
Mhm.
guy went through like 18 years of preschool because they thought he was not intelligent. So they're teaching him color blue, the dog ran like that. And you know what his response was? They said, what did you learn through this whole process? And he said, patience.
Yes.
And I was like, that is so
Yes.
beautiful. And one of the
Yes.
things that she talks about is they all are very sensitive of pure intent hearts, and they can
Mhm.
see people because they can see minds and all these things. Really interesting. And so they said they really care about love. If it has to be, people have to come from a place of love. And Joe Rogan said, well, how do they define love? Which is a great question. How do you define love? What is
Yeah.
love? And she said through her research, she's come to have a very simple definition of love.
Mm,
Love is anything that unifies.
mm. True. That is true. You know, I have to share this with you because my husband, Gregor, wrote a song the other day and he shared the song with me and I got stuck in the lyrics because they were so profound. And it is so close to what you're talking about here. He said, um, is it love or fear that moves your world? Is it love or fear that moves your world? Now, that is a fundamental question here because if it is love that moves your world, you will have patience, you won't be judging, and you
Right,
will be able to be present in an encounter with someone who has a totally different perspective than you. It doesn't mean that you allow them to walk all over you.
right,
It
right,
means to know who you are and stay in that.
right,
Like patience,
right. That's right.
presence, and just knowing what's good for you and not good for you. And it's definitely not good for you to judge others.
Right. That's right.
That's the whole thing to stay in this. You don't have to love the other person. You don't have to invite them into your home. All you need to do is to ask a question. I wonder where they come from. What is their belief system? Do I like that or not? And then you can just, pull back a little bit. You do not need to get harsh, angry. There's no need for violence in it.
That's right. That's
If I
right.
don't understand you, that means that I haven't had patience enough to think.
Mm,
If I can understand you, but I don't have to agree with you. That's the whole point. You can understand, but not agree. Usually when you understand, you will say it's all good, it's okay.
mm,
And with my son, I've had the practice this very much because we find ourselves in different worlds at times because
mm,
he's young, he sees the world in a different way than I do.
yeah.
And in the beginning, it made me angry. It
Mm,
made me angry. I would ask, why are you saying this? You're wrong. I'm right. And what that mirrored back to me was not that he was wrong and I was right. It mirrored back to me my own consciousness, where
mm,
I am not as illuminated as I thought that I was. Because if I really was that illuminated, I would say, I'm curious about why he thinks so, because I understand that he's his own human being. He has his own path. He's intelligent. I know that. So there must be a perspective that he is exploring that I'm not able to see. I don't have to agree. I just
right.
have to see it. And that's all.
Yeah.
So instead of, attacking, because you cannot attack someone out of their perspective.
Mm,
It's like you can't. You have to come close to see their perspective, and maybe then they might change their perspective because you're willing to look at it.
yeah.
But if you're not, then you won't be able to change them by attacking their perspective.
Mm,
It's so futile when you try to change someone's perspective by attacking it.
yeah. Yeah.
Even saying it feels like this is a paradox. How and the world that is where we operate in our world. We think that attacking each other will change the other's perspective.
Right. Right.
In what universe will that be right?
Right.
Like that is a paradox to me. So
It's,
talking about love, coming back to love, if it unifies, and that could be understanding. I love that description or
yeah.
that um, interpretation of what love is. If it unifies, it's love.
Mhm.
Whatever you do that is unifying, your world is moved by love.
Yes. Yes. If I, and I come from the media, so my career as a journalist and TV reporter and
Mm,
on-air host and talent, but truly, if I could do anything to bless humanity right now, it would be to take away
mm,
every news channel in every country in the
mhm,
world. in the world. And there's this narrative of we're the trusted news source, the most trusted in the US, it's the most trusted this, the most trusted that. Well, I think for the most part, people have a good understanding if there's a person that always tells you, trust me. And you're like, why are you telling me? Or to tell you the truth, when someone leads with that, and like, well, what have you been telling me all before this moment? Or to be
Exactly. Yeah.
honest, or, well, if we would have if our subconscious would pick up that something's off when someone just tells, trust me, just trust me. And we know in a one-to-one that that's an uncomfortable situation. But because this media apparatus with all the production and the frequencies and the sounds and the graphics and the certain type of person that sits there behind a desk and sits and we're told to trust that source, and we have no problem trusting that source. So what happens is all these narrow channels of information that are all funneled back to one narrative at the top that funnels to all these TV sets or devices that people consume, then they build their worldview off it. So when that worldview has been built, our beliefs have been built, and then we speak out, we're amplifying the lie that is broadcasted to
Yes.
create a reality that is not real.
Yes, absolutely. And what you're describing, or what I'm seeing when you're describing, is that if you do not know who you are, that you're the only authority in your life, the real authority in your reality, then you will have an external authority and you will only become an echo of that.
That's
You
right.
are not born into this world to be an echo of anything.
Right.
You are supposed to have your own voice, but in order to have your own voice, you have to have your own experiences. But if you're constantly, preoccupied with your phone or your tablet or your computer or TV or whatever it is, then whose truth are you echoing?
That's
And
right.
how do you know what's going on in the world if you're not tapped into those media outlets that will give you the food for your consciousness, so to speak?
That's
You
right.
have to you have to talk to people, real human beings in your world, and ask them, how can you know the truth if, as you said, you met a Canadian person and the Canadian told you about their view and you were shocked because you didn't understand what they were talking?
Yeah.
You will never be able to understand them unless you actually meet them and
Yes.
speak and
Yes.
be curious and non-judging.
Right.
But if you're pre-programmed with judging and you are not curious, you're actually afraid of them. Like in the US or in Europe, if you would meet a Russian person, they would attack that person. They wouldn't be open and curious because
Right.
there are ideas about who and what this person is
Yes.
based on news and where they come from, not based on the consciousness that you're looking at that
Yes.
moment,
That's right.
which is deeply flawed. It is not truth, it is false. So awakening to this, becoming aware, is to, have the ability to pause and
Mm.
observe, because whatever comes after that is a mirror of where you are in your own consciousness.
Mm.
So pause and observe and ask yourself, am I reacting from my past beliefs, or am I reacting or acting from present awareness?
Mm.
Like presence, being there actually and looking at the person, as you did with the Canadian
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
man, guy,
Yeah.
whatever it was. You were present with him and you were listening and you actually asked questions to yourself. You said, oh my God, he doesn't even know what I'm thinking. He's basing his assumptions on media
Yeah.
and things someone else told him. Well,
Right.
I'm right in front of him and I can tell him exactly what I think, which would it would unify you. So that would be an act of love to be present in that moment.
Mm. Mm.
I think that's the only way to communicate, to stop prejudging or to stop being proactive
Yeah,
by allowing beliefs and filters which are absolutely not yours. If you've been watching the news and you think that you know everything about the world, I promise you, are probably watching one side of the news,
absolutely.
because there is this, I mean, we're looking for things that that will it's confirmation bias. I was looking for
Yeah,
that
yeah,
word.
yes.
That will confirm only the things that we believe in. And then someone will pop into our reality, which is not a part of our usual reality, and we will judge them instead of being open and curious and say, I wonder who you are.
Yeah, right. That I've said this so many times on these lives, and I say it quite a bit on my podcast. One of my favorite quotes is A.W. Tozer's, "A man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with an argument. If you experience it firsthand, it doesn't matter what someone tries to
Mhm.
logically share." That's why the news is so powerful, because it feels like an experience, because they're using sight, sound, and emotion to create this like
Mhm.
experience that people have, so it feels like their truth. Well, Thomas Campbell, the physicist, was on Joe Rogan's podcast a while ago, and he has My Big Toe podcast, which is the toe theory of everything, and
Mhm.
brilliant physicist, brilliant mind. And he said, and it's the same thing. A man, or he said, if it's not your experience, it will never be your truth.
Mm.
If it's not your experience, it will never be your truth. So instead of us, I believe humans get to understand that there are these experiences that people are having that feel incredibly real to them. And if it feels real,
Mhm.
it feels therefore true by extension.
Mm.
But we who are starting to ask these questions get to start asking, where did you have this experience and with
Mm.
whom? And was it a
Mhm.
first person experience that you encountered? Did you see a Russian
Mhm.
hurt a Ukrainian? No, you didn't. Okay, so you're two removed, maybe. Did your
Mhm.
child go and fight in that and
Mm.
you hurt? Okay, so that's two removed. Now, no, you don't know someone first person in your family that went and fought. Okay, so how many are you removed from
Mhm.
any belief system that you hold?
Mm.
Any belief
Mm.
system. It could be I mean, how easy do they this is how easily humanity is controlled. They say the time changes in the United States, and I have to like adjust. Oh, okay, adjust my time. Like we really are that easily
Yeah.
swayed,
Mhm.
manipulated,
Yeah, I
controlled,
was trying. Yeah, yeah.
influenced. So I think part of this is waking up, and I hope everyone watching wakes up to it's not that someone else is wrong in what they believe
Mhm.
is true. It's our
Mhm.
opportunity to ask, did you experience, how was that experienced? How was your belief that you believe is true experience? Was it first person?
Mm.
Was it
Yes.
a
Mm.
hundredth person? Was it 2000 years ago that someone has been telling, another
Mm.
person has been telling it, and that just,
Mhm.
and then who benefits from keeping that narrative? The governments of the world benefit from always having a war, because it
Mm.
creates two sides, and a house divided
Mm.
against itself cannot stand two, split. And so,
Yes.
anyway, I just share all this is that
Yeah.
we have to come back to what was the experience that you had that gave you that truth that you hold on to.
Mm. Absolutely. And, starting with you're wrong.
Right.
Again, it
Yeah.
comes back to you. It takes a U-turn and it comes back to you. There is no such thing. The more you know about this reality, the more you know about who you are, being the one having a human experience here, and so are you, and so is everyone else. And everyone is, in that sense, very precious to the one having the experience.
Yeah.
So then, who am I to say you are wrong and then stay in that judgment? I can say, I think that this feels wrong to me,
Mhm.
but then I have to, build in a curiosity there. I'll
Yes.
have to ask you, okay, so tell me more. What
Yeah.
makes you feel that way? And if I say, tell me more, what makes you feel that way? I open
Yes.
my portal of consciousness and create space for that person to tell me more. I don't need to accept or believe or buy into what they're saying. What
Mm,
it will help me do is to understand them better. And the
mm,
more you do this, the more you see that most of the things that people believe and think come from either love or fear,
yeah.
usually from fear. When they have a belief system that is very, very rigid, it
Yep.
comes from fear. And when you can see that the other person is speaking from fear and you know who you are and you can speak from love, well, then you don't need to argue. There is no need for argument. There is no need for any, violent
Right.
actions here. You can just leave it at that. But that will also show you the game that we're playing here. It will show you the game that we're playing here. And I was watching the other day an interview with Donald Hoffman, I think
Mm,
his name is. And he talks about this reality being, or he describes our experience of this reality as having a virtual reality set on our heads.
mm,
And if you put that thing on your head and understand that you are just an avatar in the game, your true self is playing the game, but you're the
yes.
avatar here. And to speak my own language, that would be that I am just my human. My higher self has a human here, and that human has this virtual reality thing going on. And
Mm,
so everything you see in this world is a part of the supercomputer that is creating your virtual reality. So I can see a pen here, but in reality, that pen does not exist because it's computed in this supercomputer. And
mm,
it seems like a thing to me, but it's ones and zeros,
yeah.
actually. And everything in this world is like that. If you have this virtual reality thing on your head and you look at other people and you start judging them, nothing of this is actually real.
Mm,
If you're looking for the truth, you will not find it in the game. You
right.
have to go outside of the game to see the truth that your higher self has a human in this place. So, what are you supposed to do? Jump out of the game? No, you are here for a reason. So, figure out what the reason is. And for some reason, I think that the one, as I was speaking about in this chapter from my book, the one puts a veil on forgetfulness on itself in order to play the game of not knowing.
Mm,
And then the job for the one is to find out, to
mm,
get to know oneself again. So if you're not trying to find who you are in this game, you're playing the game in a hard way. Like
mm,
you will not be enjoying the game. You will
right.
be beaten down. There will be problems. There will be obstacles because you're not trying to find out who you are. And you
Mm,
will not see yourself mirrored back through all the other characters. You will judge them, you will push them away, and you will be alone.
yeah.
If you try to figure out who you are, you will realize that every thought, everything that you are seeking here comes back as a U-turn to you. Our entire reality is a mirror of our own consciousness.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And so if you know this, then you can start thinking, okay, so why is this so? Like he gave an example of where he was bitten by a spider.
Mm,
And he was like, oh, that hurt. That wasn't okay. But then again, it's a mirror of himself. So he could look at it from a different perspective. He would say, okay, so what's the symbolic meaning of a spider?
mm,
Why did it bit me? It's like playing the game,
mm,
looking at it from a higher perspective.
mm,
So I really enjoyed that podcast because he is a scientist, but he dares to go outside of time and space.
mm,
The funny thing is that he talks about time and space as being something in the virtual reality. And this is how I see time and space. I see time and space as time and space, and my consciousness is crucified in the cross of the time and space.
mm.
That's where my consciousness comes into this world, and time and space becomes a part of this world. And I can't go outside of that because that's the premise of the game that I'm
Yeah.
playing here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And everyone else has the same thing. That's where they enter this world. So as soon as I can see you as consciousness, exactly as I am, having a human experience here,
Yeah.
I have access to consciousness through you, and that will make me richer
Mm,
in this game.
yeah.
I don't judge you, I'm curious about you. I don't agree with you, but I'm still curious about you.
Mm. And I think the big, tell me what you think of this. I will say that
Mhm.
it feels like the only way to get to this perspective is to face your greatest fears, to not let
Yes,
fear be the default mode. If you are in a
yes,
place of love, then you're not threatened to be curious, and you're not threatened by other people's beliefs, and you're not there's no threat because you understand your own sovereignty and your own
yes,
intention, your own being the observer.
yes,
But you're in fear, it just it not only clouds it, it is isolating. Therefore, you need other people to reinforce your belief in the fear. So you need as many people to
yes,
believe the same thing so you feel
yes,
safe. Instead of in love, you can stand
yes,
alone and understand that you're not alone. You're connected to
yes.
all, and to have this experience of uncovering.
Mm. I think that fear is the biggest trigger here.
Mm,
Fear is the biggest trigger
mm,
where we shut down our access to who we are.
mm.
It really is, and that is also why social media and news and all of the things that are accelerating with information
Yeah.
is it is creating a lot of unnecessary fear here.
Could you imagine if the news came out and said everything's okay? Everything's okay. Everything's beautiful. The birds still sing. The grass still grows. The animals still graze. The fish still swim.
Yes, but
Humans still help each other. Like, could you imagine the world? And people would be like,
yes.
wow, this is a beautiful place. Yes, it is. Yes, it
But
is.
here's the thing. My husband comes from Krakow, which is a city in a medieval city in Poland.
Mm,
And in Krakow, at the square, the biggest square there, there is a church. And at the top of that church, there is a trumpeter.
mm,
This has been going on since the Middle Ages.
mm.
Every hour, he plays his trumpet in all the directions of, north, south, west, east. He plays the trumpet. And this means that all is well. So
Wow.
sometimes I wake up and I
Wow.
can hear it at night when we are in Krakow. I can wake up and I can hear it at night, and I hear
Mm,
that subtle trumpet playing, and I know that all is well, all is good, all
mm,
is well, all is good.
mm.
Every hour, they tell you that all is well. You are protected. You are safe. All
Mm,
is well. And
mm.
that is the truth. All is well. You are protected and you are safe.
Yes.
Every single hour.
Mm, mm.
So just knowing that, not allowing the fear to come in. And I always come back to this, even though I'm not religious in that sense, but I come back to John Paul II and his last words. It was non paura, which means do not fear. His last words, do not fear.
Mm.
And that is the truth. You will feel fear in this reality because we can't. This is a reality of polarities,
Mm.
and you will encounter darkness. You will encounter fear. The thing here is to not dwell in it, to not allow it to hypnotize you, to not allow it to steal your purpose here, which is to explore who you
Yes.
are.
Yes.
And as soon as you feel that fear vibrating, take it as a signal instead to explore what makes me feel this way. Is this real? And it's usually not, because as you say, it will not be in your immediate
Hmm.
um, in your immediate what
Experience or yeah,
yes, exactly. It will be some coming from somewhere else, from far from you. It is not in your immediate experience.
right. That's right.
There in your doorstep, it's something else. And it's your job to see, why am I fearing this? Why am I reacting to this the way I am? Why does this make me uncomfortable, without dwelling in it? Because your goal is not to dwell in it. Your goal is not to adore it, explore it, you know, have your goal is to understand it and leave it
Yeah.
and then continue. That is what you're supposed to do. This is the transformation that I'm talking about in every podcast that we do.
Yes.
And that is to transform negative energy into a positive manifestation. For
Mm,
me, it feels like there's so much more work that I need to do every day in order to, transform that negative energy coming towards me into a positive manifestation. And I'm doing it 24/7. I feel like I didn't do this 10 years ago, but again, I might not have been as aware as I am right now.
yeah. Yeah.
So it might feel like it's heavier, but it doesn't have to be. It's a
Mm,
question of, transforming it into something else.
mm,
So if I am able to transform a negative experience into a positive manifestation, every time I encounter someone who does not see reality the way I see it, then I'm on the plus side all the time.
yeah.
And life becomes easier. It becomes more fun. It becomes lighter, maybe.
Expansive, not constricted,
Yes.
but expansive.
Yes.
Abundance, not
Yes.
scarcity.
Exactly.
Peace,
What make,
not
yes.
turmoil. Yeah. I mean, all these. Yeah. Yeah.
And it comes from here. And again, I know that people stop this thought in their head because they think that it means that someone will walk all over you. And that does not mean that someone will walk all over you. Here's the thing. Things you do not focus on disappear from your reality. This is quantum physics. If you
Yes.
don't look at them, they do not exist.
That's right.
Like literally, they don't exist. You can't prove that they exist if you're not looking at them. So, where you put your focus, that is what will grow in your reality. So, encountering someone who has a different view than you have, there are two options. You can explore it, you can enjoy exploring it, and then you can leave it, or you can really try to understand and stay there and continue. Either way, it's going to be much more pleasant than resisting it violently. Because whatever you resist, that is where you put your focus, and the quantum field will give you more of that.
Mm,
Like another person or 10 other people doing the same thing. So if you do not want to explore it, shift your focus. And you can shift your focus by looking at that person in a different way. Like saying, I hear that we have different views of this. I'm curious, where does your beliefs come from? What is it? Why do you see it the way you see it? And really curiously wonder.
mm,
That is also to shift perspective. You don't even need to change, turn your back to the person. You can actually shift perspective by becoming more curious about them.
mm,
Not make them your best friends if you don't want to. You just see where they come from and then you leave it at that. Just,
mm.
enjoying life.
Powerful.
It is, yeah.
Oh, it is power. It is the power that
Mhm.
we have to shift and create our own
Yes,
reality. This
yes.
how beliefs shape your reality. Well, it's really of our own choosing. Will we accept what we haven't experienced as a belief, which becomes real, which we speak
Mhm.
and it manifests and it expands, or are we going to observe, be curious, come from a place of love and that's
Mhm.
really ultimately choice, and everyone has that choice.
Yes, absolutely. And as I say, my son has been my biggest teacher when it comes to this because I have to be radically honest with myself when I feel that I'm in opposition with him or that when he sees the world in a different way than I do. And I have to ask myself, not him, myself, am I trying to be right or am I trying to understand? Now that's a big shift within me because
Yeah.
if I'm trying to be right, then I am shutting down the illumination that is going on.
Mm,
I cannot be right. I can only try to understand. Since there is no truth, then there is no right either. I
mm,
can't say I am right and you are wrong. I can only say that I experience this as right. I
mm, mm.
experience this as truth.
Yeah.
And then I'm curious, why do you experience something else as right and truth?
Right. Yes.
So I have I have to shift from I want to be right to I want to understand. And when
Mm,
I understand, I can make a conscious choice, informed choice. I can say, I understand where you come from, but I don't agree with you. And that's all good. As long as I say, I understand where you come from. It is when I do not understand where you come from and I
right.
do not accept your truth, that is where war can be created. So as long as I say, I understand, not just say, I actually understand where you come from, but I see something different and it's all good. We
Mm,
don't have to agree. We just have to maybe be curious of each other's perspectives in
yeah.
order to not fight.
That's right. That's right.
So it's a question of shift within me. It's not a shift in reality outside of me because that won't happen until it happens here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the shift is, do I want to be right or do I want to understand?
Mm,
Sometimes I want to be right, and that's okay. I'm experiencing that.
yeah.
But if I want to find ease in my reality, I have to opt for understanding. That would make it easier for me.
Mm, that's good. That's good.
Children teach you so many things.
Oh,
I know that you have four, so you have a lot of
I've learned a
to
lot. Yeah.
yes, to learn. Yes, of course.
I've needed to be taught many things, and they've been good teachers for me.
This is why you chose to have four of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. I had a lot to learn. Yeah.
Yeah, I
But
know.
this is so beautiful, and I hope people are blessed and really, take pause and not to be so
Mm,
quick to jump and believe. I think that's really the thing. Like
yes.
maybe this aspect of the human that has the ability to believe
Mm,
is probably our greatest life force expression, which
yes.
is why it gets hijacked so often
Mhm,
by a narrative that doesn't
yes.
equal our day-to-day experience. And so I would just encourage everyone to ask yourself why you believe what you believe and who's the source of it. But more than that, be careful what you believe in.
Mhm,
Careful what you believe in. Hold that sacred. It's like
mhm,
it's so sacred. What
mm,
we believe, we speak and we create. So let us be
mm.
real gentle when it comes to belief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's another thing which might seem like a hard thing to do, but you can actually hold different beliefs.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that is correct.
You can hold different beliefs. When you have a conversation with someone and you can understand their belief, you don't have to agree, but you can hold it. You can
Yes.
see it. And it takes presence and it takes willingness to create this space where you can hold both beliefs without losing your identity or your belief or your truth in this.
Right.
And I think that is an art form to be able to hold two beliefs. It's a paradox, but it's absolutely doable. And children teach you this. You
Yes.
have to hold different beliefs at the same time. It's not impossible. It is when you think that just one thing, you can hold one thing and not the other, that makes it rigid and it will lower your frequency and it will not make your life easy to navigate because it's restricting. It has to be more expansive. I
Right.
think people are afraid of expansive things because ego is triggered. Ego wants to hold your identity, and your identity is built up with all these beliefs that you have about reality. If they're yours or someone else, ego doesn't care.
Mm.
It's this is who you are, and you have to fight for this because there's danger out there. They're going to deconstruct who you are. That's not the truth, because who you truly are cannot be deconstructed or hurt by anything.
Right.
So just tapping into that place and who you are can hold more than one belief without any problems. That's the paradox of it all. So I think that, as you said, being gentle and gentle towards yourself,
Yes, that's right. First.
remembering who you are, that you're the consciousness, you are one experiencing everything here through a certain perspective, knowing that your perspective is valid, but the other person that you're speaking to has the same premises. Their perspective is valid too. So you have to be curious about their perspective. You
Right.
don't have to accept it. You don't have to say, yes, this is my truth, I follow you now. You don't have to do that. But the curious thing, the curiousness will expand your world, and you allow more light to come from you.
Yes. Yes.
So it's a win-win situation to do it that way. It's not about losing your identity. It's not about becoming someone else. It's just becoming more of who you truly are.
Right. Beautiful. It's beautiful. And it is the gift of the human experience to go
Yes.
through all this, and in like your chapter, to remember the oneness of it all. And
Yes.
yeah, it's so good.
Yes, to understand that we all come from the same source,
Yeah.
and that we are just different perspectives of one consciousness. Experience playing hide and seek with itself,
Mm,
trying to get to know itself from different perspectives. It's a game that it
yeah.
is playing.
Yeah.
It is a real thing for us because we are in it, but it's also joyful that it isn't as serious as our human beings, my human thinks it is. Sometimes I can allow myself to drift out and look at myself from a higher perspective and say, it's all good. It's
Yeah.
all good.
Yes. This has been so beautiful. Thanks for another amazing
Yes.
Sunday Live. This has
Thank you,
been so
Lucas.
fun. And everyone,
Amazing.
thank you for listening, and just blessings. Oh my goodness, so much blessings. Everyone listening. And we're all learning how to play the game better
Yes,
together.
we're all learning to be gentle towards ourselves and others. Gentle, gentle, gentle. That's what we want.
Amazing.